In this video, I'll show you how we value a chooser option as a package of two options, and the chooser option is similar to a vanilla option in the sense that at expiration, there's a fixed strike price, and we're either going to be in the money or out of the money. If we're in the money, we can exercise for a gain. The difference with the chooser option is that somewhere here in between on the timeline, at time 1, we get to choose or decide whether or not this is a call or a put option. A chooser option has advanced variations, but if we just consider the basic version of a chooser option, it is similar to a vanilla or standard option with one key difference. And so the key difference here is the fact that we have two time dates and a choice here before expiration. So in the example I'm going to show you on the next page with numbers, my T1 is 1 year and my T2 is going to be 2 years. So this is a pretty long maturity. In terms of what's similar to a vanilla or standard option, we would purchase the option here at T0. We purchase the chooser option, and it has an expiration, in my case, at 2 years, labeled with T2. And so at expiration or maturity, as usual, we compare the underlying asset, in this case a stock price, to the strike price. And if we're in the money with positive intrinsic value, then we exercise for a gain. In my case, the strike price is going to be $40. So in that respect, it's similar to a vanilla option. We purchase the option, 2 years later, or at T2, we exercise if there's intrinsic value relative to a fixed strike price and only a single strike price. The advanced variations, you can have more than one strike price, but here in the basic version, a single fixed strike price. Okay, so the difference between this chooser option is that at some pre-specified date before maturity, we get to choose whether or not this chooser option is a call or a put. That's the difference. And so, for example, if at T0 here, we purchase the chooser option, in my case, T1 is 1 year, we get out to 1 year and we get to decide if it's a call or a put. And so that's why it's also called an as you like it option. So for example, at T0, if the stock price increases, we get out to 1 year and it's higher, then we're going to choose the as you like it option. We're going to choose that this is a call option. And at that point, then we hold a call option with a remaining maturity you can see of T2 minus T1. On the other hand, we purchase that same chooser option at T0, but the asset or stock price maybe unexpectedly drops. Then when we get to T1, or 1 year in my case, naturally we're going to choose this to be a put option, and this put option will then have a remaining life of T2 minus T1, or 1 year in my case, but it will have that same fixed strike price is specified at the beginning. So in a lot of ways similar, and for that reason actually one of the easier exotics to value. My model, and I'll put that spreadsheet in the description field, uses mostly the same inputs and the same mechanics as the Black-Scholes-Merton. I'm assuming that the current stock price is $40, along with that strike price, as I mentioned, is $40. I'm going to assume a volatility of 30%, risk-free rate of 40%, and then here's the key difference in the pricing model. We need two time frames. Choice at T1, which I'm using 1 year, and a maturity at T2, and I'm using 2 years. And then also, because this model accommodates a dividend yield specified as usual, a small q, and that small q connotes a continuous dividend yield as opposed to a lumpy sum, I'm going to assume a 2% dividend yield. Now I'm following John Hall, and the derivation is actually, as exotics go, pretty straightforward, but there is a condition here. As mentioned, we're valuing the simple case of the chooser option, so the condition is that this needs to be European style, and they need the call or the put that is chosen at T1 needs to be the same strike price. So we only have a single strike price. So conditional on that, we can use, you may recognize those assumptions as assumptions in put-call parity. So conditional on those assumptions, we can use put-call parity to derive the relatively simple valuation of the chooser option as a package of a call and a put. And the idea here is that I'm going to specify delta T as T2 minus T1. So in my case, that's 1 year, 2 years minus 1 year. And from the perspective of T1, you can see that this chooser really is a max function, right? That's really the definition of the chooser at T1. We're going to select a call or a put, so the value of it is the max of the call and the put. And then the insight that we can rely on, conditional on both being European options and with the same strike price, is that we can use put-call parity to substitute for the value of the put. In put-call parity, the value of the put here is equal to a call plus cash, I like to say, which is the strike price reduced or discounted at the risk-free rate, in this case at delta T, because this is from the perspective of time 1, and we're subtracting the stock price at time 1, reduced by the dividend as usual, negative Q, and also at delta T. Right, so that all I did there is use put-call parity to substitute for the put, and the reason that Hull does that in the derivation is that we can pull out the call from the max function, right? That's an elegant property, the max function, which is to say, I'll do a real simple version here so it's super clear, right? But if we do max, if I just said max of A and A plus B, hopefully you can take a closer look at that on your own and see that that is going to equal necessarily A plus the max of 0 and B. Right, so we use that property to pull the C out, and then also we distribute this exponent here with the negative dividend. So that's a distribution, and that allows us to take this here and say it's equal to a call plus that exponent that we're distributing, which is e to the negative q delta t, multiplied by the max function. That's why I say it's distributed, of 0, and the discounted strike price at negative r minus q delta t minus S1. Okay, so this dividend discount here is distributed across this term, and that's why this negative r becomes a negative quantity r minus q, and that's delta t. Okay, so that right there is the valuation formula for the chooser option, and it allows us to express it as a package, you can see here, of just the two terms. Right here, it's just the call. So that's why in my valuation formula, my valuation down here as a package, we have 1 unit of the call, and for the put, it's almost 1 unit, but if there's a dividend, it's slightly less, right? If Q is equal to 0, this is going to be equal to 1, and we'll have 1 put as well, because this here is the payoff of a put. So what we have are this many units of a put option, and that put option has a strike equal to K times E raised to, here you can see, negative R minus Q delta T. Right, I'm taking that max function and now saying, because that's the payoff, then this is a put, here's the strike on the put, and the maturity on the put. It's a little trickier because this is the payoff from the perspective of time 1, and you may have noticed that's stock price at time 1. We're pricing this at time 0 actually, and if we discount the expected stock price at time 1 to today, it's the stock price today by definition. So that's how the S1 becomes an S. And for similar reason, because we're pricing at times 1, the maturity may be counterintuitively at first. Well, when I first look at it, the maturity here is T1. But so that max function then gives us a put option here, or in my case, 0.980 put options because the dividend is 2%. So what I've done with the package, with the model, with the spreadsheet here, is price these options under these assumptions. And so for the call, I've got typically ND1 and ND2. That's the standard normal cumulative distribution function, solving for the call. So this, under these assumptions, this chooser option with a 2-year ultimate maturity, the call price is $7.11. You can see right there, that's the value of the call at time 0. And the value of a full put would be $3 and almost 86 cents. We have slightly less put options because there's a 2% dividend yield. And so the value of that put component of our package is just less than $3.78, right? So this is the package. Adding these together gives us the value of the chooser option. So that's my price of this chooser option. You can see it's just about $10.90. And what I did here also is just I compared it to a straddle, right? Because this option has its characteristics similar to a straddle. Well, superficially, they are both long volatility and indifferent about the direction of volatility. Could be up or down on the price. But notice my straddle here is going to have a value equal to a call plus a value of a put, but with the full 2-year maturity. And you'll notice the straddle's more expensive. And I hope that's at least intuitive, because with the straddle, we don't need to make that decision at 1 year, whether it's a call or a put. We essentially get to defer the decision all the way to the end and get either the call or the put. So the chooser option should be less expensive because it's effectively forcing that choice on us at 1 year. For that reason, changing this T1 will vary the value of the chooser. So I hope that's helpful. If it is, please subscribe to the channel and we'll keep you updated of our videos. Thank you.